So, trade union leaders, for however long since they became a bigger force in politics during the pandemic, have talked a lot about the casualization of our workforce. There are plenty of trade unions who talk about the fact that one of the things and the benefits you get from a collective bargaining agreement are better terms and conditions for where you work. What you need for those terms and conditions, though, is an actual employment contract where you are a worker and counted as employed, rather than what you get nowadays, which is this desire to have casualized workforce of self-employed selling the dream of being your own boss by taking away all of your employment rights and putting more onus on you to deliver, rather than having there be some kind of set level of remuneration and terms and conditions you would otherwise get. One of the things that has led to this is the privatization of loads of public services, whereas when they were state employed, they got much better terms and conditions, much better contracts, much more control over their workplaces, and much better collective bargaining agreements. Now that these things have been subcontracted out to the private sector or privatized entirely, like in the case of Royal Mail, a lot of these terms and conditions have been undermined. Enter Royal Mail, privatized in 2013 by the Conservative government, just come out of a very long union negotiation where a lot of the unionized workforce felt like they didn't get a particularly good deal from my union, actually, the CWU, in their negotiation with Royal Mail. They are trying to fatten up their share price whilst trying to sell the company to a private equity firm in Luxembourg, and increasing the share price will involve ensuring that your overheads on staff are as low as possible and they're getting maximum amount out of them for as little staff salary as possible. So this led to a very long, very protracted dispute in which the value of Royal Mail decreased by a lot and they kept posting losses because of time off due to strike action. This has led to a failure in mail delivery. It's led to letters being continually stacked up, undelivered in sorting offices during strike days, and this is also within the context of what we saw in the debate we watched last week of parcels being prioritised over letters because they are profitable, because they are done through this kind of subcontractual method as a profit-seeking endeavour, rather than through the universal service obligation of having a 6-day delivery service for letters, because that's one thing that they have to do under the Privatisation Act versus one thing they want to do because it's profitable, and so the letters get sent by the wayside, on top of the fact the workers' rights get set by the wayside. Now, this is a story we've seen of Royal Mail being sued by delivery drivers because they don't want to be classified as gig economy, self-employed owner drivers, as you see in the title there. This is for Parcel Force, which is a substrata of Royal Mail specifically, and they are now taking Royal Mail to court to be classed as workers rather than self-employed. So let's read on. Royal Mail is being sued for classifying delivery drivers as self-employed, enabling it to avoid paying sick pay and the minimum wage, in a case that mirrors a landmark gig economy legal ruling against Uber. The Royal Mail drivers allege that the practice means Parcel Force, the company's parcel delivery subsidiary, can also make them pay hundreds of pounds in fines when they call in sick, which is utterly ridiculous. The fact that instead of getting paid to be sick, so that people have the incentivized nature to ensure that they're only working when they're on maximum productivity, you instead punish people for being sick. So a lot of time, people don't really choose that. And by a lot of the time, I mean the vast majority of cases, people don't choose to be sick, which is unbelievably draconian that you make somebody pay for being sick. Absolutely unreal. On top of the fact that you're not even getting your salary for working when you're not there because you're sick. You then even lose even more money. Utterly ridiculous. Mark Francis, one of the claimants in this case, which is being handled by the Independent Workers Union of Great Britain, absolutely based union, who've been on a very, very long food delivery strike last week, which everybody should go support. If you're an independent worker, please think about joining. They're an excellent trade union representing small migrant workers, representing delivery drivers, representing the self-employed and all that kind of gig economy malarkey. They really are the vanguard of the fight against the gig economy since the Labour Party has given up on this shit. And the solicitor Lee Dyer said that after 10 years of working for Parcel Force, he has had enough. I am not surprised in the slightest. The drivers argue that Parcel Force and its parent company Royal Mail wrongly classify a large number of its delivery drivers, such as Francis, as self-employed owner drivers. Despite being classed as self-employed, owner drivers do not have control over the days they work, which are outlined in contracts with Parcel Force, the hours they work as is dependent on the number of packages given to them by Parcel Force each morning, or even the route they take, determined by the company's route excellence computer system. So this isn't independent work. This isn't a choice of how you decide to do your work. You're just being classified specifically as self-employed as an avoidance scheme for proper terms and conditions. Again, something that privatization and the gig economy has created, and that the only way you can protect yourself from having this weaponized against you is by joining a trade union. So everyone go home, do that, right? Trade union representation in this country is like 25%. Do it. I don't give a shit what you do. Join a trade union. Unite is as cheap as £6 a month for some people. It's worth every penny. Go and do it today. As self-employed staff, they're not given the same protections as workers, such as holiday pay, sick pay, or the minimum wage, and are charged fees when they call in sick. In September, a flare-up of ulcerative colitis meant Francis could not work for 2 weeks. When he came back from sickness, he was asked to pay £764 to Parcel Force to cover the cost of the agency worker who covered this route. This This is absurd. This is work under neoliberalism. This is what happens when you're not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. This is what happens when the private sector is let loose by the government with no regulation to be able to decide how all of their employment contracts are set up, especially when the supply-side labour market reforms of this government continually for 14 years have made it so that employers have all the powers and employees have none of the power. Of course, if there was a worker cooperative as well, rather than a privately owned business but done in a worker cooperative, you'd have choice over your own terms and conditions because it would be done democratically by the workers. So whether it's done as a state-owned company or as a collectively owned company, that's how you protect the working terms and conditions unless you're covered by a collective bargaining agreement. You're one bulwark in the absence of a strong government against the tyranny of capital. Another of the claimants with a more extensive delivery route was allegedly forced to pay nearly £1,500 to cover his route when he couldn't work for 2 weeks. Francis claimed the practice leaves owner-drivers unable to take time off and scared of attending GP appointments given the amount that it could cost them. In one email to his depot managers he shared with The Observer, he informed that he had just been told by doctors that he had developed pneumonia, but reassured his bosses that he'll be in the morning for work. This is sick. This is absolutely sickening. People who get diagnosed with pneumonia are fearing of taking time off work because their own employer will charge them for it. Utterly ridiculous. On another occasion, when the planned cover did not turn up for a shift he had to miss, Francis received a letter from Parcelforce threatening to terminate his contract. Another part of the complaint surrounds pay. Owner-drivers agree the individual parcel rates with Parcelforce in their contracts. In Francis's case, his base rate is actually reduced a few years into his time as an owner-driver, despite small increases since he has frequently fails to make the minimum wage after deducting his costs. This should be illegal. For one day in late January, he made just £58 for a day's work after paying for fuel in his van lease. Owner-drivers do not get paid for parcels that are not delivered successfully, despite drivers spending time and fuel to attempt the delivery, and can see their pay confiscated if they fail to deliver within the strict 1-hour windows determined by Parcelforce's computer system. Wow. The reason why owner-drivers are much more suitable to the business is purely down to exploitation, Francis said. True. We can talk to me about money all you want, but this case is not about that. All I want is legal rights that we are due, he added, and that trade unions fought for, and that we are allowing to get taken away from us through neoliberal reforms of right-wing governments that we've had for the last 45 years. The case resembles a seminal legal battle against Uber that went all the way to the Supreme Court in 2021, in which Uber drivers won the right to be classed as workers rather than self-employed contractors. Francis and the 200 claimants in this case, Phil Thomas and Stephen Wardell, first lodged their complaint with the IWGB union, but the case has now been taken on by the solicitor Lee Day. The legal firm said that it believes the problems faced by the trio were endemic across Parcelforce and that it hoped to launch a wider group claim in the future. In our view, Parcelforce drivers working for Royal Mail should be entitled to workers' rights such as receiving holiday pay and being paid the national minimum wage. This issue affects thousands of Parcelforce owner-drivers, said Leanna Wood, a senior associate solicitor at Lee Day. The owners of Royal Mail want to make sure their share price is as high as possible to get the highest returns on their sale to the Luxembourg-based private equity company they are looking to sell the business to. If they have people getting paid more with better holiday pay, which comes out of the bottom line of the company, the people who own the institution but do no work, the bourgeois class, okay, they are in conflict with the people who actually do the work who want to get paid more because they have completely conflicting interests. This is basic Marxism being showed to you in its clearest form. I don't know how much more I can explain this to rightoids and liberals who just don't get this and thinks that you can have some kind of consolidated group effort with capital that routinely opposes your interests without there being something to mediate that conflict, whether it be the state, whether it be a trade union. Often these drivers have worked for Royal Mail for many years and seen their working conditions steadily decline. Yet, as they are classified as self-employed contractors, they are denied their basic workers' rights. A Parcelforce spokesperson said, "All of our owner drivers are self-employed and refute any claims that this is not the case." I mean, because you've classified them as that. Our self-employed drivers play a valuable role in delivering parcels in the UK and are free to provide their services to other businesses. But of course, your vocation that you choose is something that is important to you. There is more utility to learning a craft and being part of a functioning economy than just whether you can sell your services to the highest bidder or whether you can change to be in a more lucrative career when your vocation might be worth more to you than just that. So the fact that we have this race to the bottom due to supply-side labour market reform is why you should never vote Conservative at any general election ever. Our owner drivers can choose whether to personally make deliveries and collections or arrange for other drivers to do them. We're unable to comment on the ongoing legal claim, I'm sure not. But there you go. There you go, chat. This is why you need to join a trade union. You need to never vote Conservative, and why you should be a socialist and a Marxist as well. Because it's obvious to me, and obvious to many of the members in the chat, as you can see right there, that the division of labour is not something that you can just ignore. It's fundamental. The conflict is fundamental to capitalism, and until we deal with that, you can only mediate that. And your best way of mediation is voting for socialists and by joining a trade union. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube. as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.